It forces children to lie and wrecks families, while fathers rot in jail. Called malicious mother syndrome, it's an abnormal but not uncommon pattern of behavior where a mother falsely accuses the father of her child of sexual abuse. Devi speaks to desperate fathers.
Locked away for life for raping his own daughter, a sentence many South Africans would see as justice deserved. Except Sifiso Shezi didn't do it. The truth only came out after he'd served a decade in Westville prison. In July, he was released. It's a day he thought would never come. Sifiso's daughter Pinky was 8 when her mother forced her to lie about being abused at the hands of her father. She'd fallen for another man, a policeman. Sifiso alleges that he then had him arrested while Pinky's mother looked on. It's called malicious mother syndrome, where a mother falsely accuses the father of sexually molesting their child. Children are forced to lie, fathers rot in jail, and families fall apart. Sifiso owes his freedom to Derek Nduli and Professor Lindum Leche of the Justice for Prisoners and Detainees Trust, a prison advocacy group. Once a prisoner himself, Derek has committed himself to helping inmates in South African jails.
There were a lot of death in prisons, a lot of rape of prisoners, and those cases were not reported to the society at large outside.
But reversing Sifiso's conviction hasn't been easy. Pinky retracted her accusation in 2008 after her mother died. Yet, it took 5 long years before he was released. Prof, as Lindo is known to his clients, has been working with Derek for the past 2 years, helping wrongly convicted people. He works pro bono.
When this man came to my office with Derek Mhloli, I knew that that was trouble. Because when he came in, he came empty-handed.
The dedicated team have helped free a number of innocent prisoners. Derek had visited Sifiso in jail and found a man living on the edge. He even joined a gang to make survival easier. One of them is a tattoo of his daughter's name. Beatings at the hands of inmates and prison guards have also left scars.
Well, he was confused, crying. I said to him, I'm not promising you, but we will try our best to get you out. Let's give the social workers the time to do their investigation.
Part of that investigation involved Pinky, whose mother had coerced her into lying about the abuse. The children are typically the biggest losers in these cases. At a tender age, they're exposed to a humiliating, frightening, and confusing series of interviews, questions, and examinations. Head of Child Helpline International, Joan van Niekerk, says malicious mother syndrome is a pattern of abnormal behavior that's received little attention in South Africa. It's not an uncommon occurrence when parents separate. Sifiso Shezi's case has served to highlight the issue.
It interferes with trusting relationships and trust in relationships with parents. It also puts the child in a situation in which they feel very emotionally split between the two parents.
Pinky is now 18. She says she lied in the dark because she was scared of her mother.
Futhi ulo uma into eyenza ukuthi ngibe ngimsabe ngoba wayeshaya futhi
Peter, not his real name, says he was falsely accused of molesting his 7-year-old daughter 3 years ago.
I was so shocked, I couldn't function correctly, I couldn't think, I couldn't eat. I lost 17 kilograms in 2 weeks.
He's asked that we hide his identity to spare his daughter any further trauma. Why do you think she did that?
She said she didn't want to be married any longer, and that she didn't need a man in her life.
Peter says his relationship with his ex-wife had soured. They fought often, and it seemed as if she wanted him out of the picture for good.
Women lie when they don't feel powerful enough to deal with the situation. And it's the only way in which they feel They can manage the split, the schism between themselves and their partner.
And where was your daughter during this time?
She was with her mother.
So could you see her?
There were 2 periods of 3 to 3.5 months where I was allowed no contact whatsoever.
The fallout is a family catastrophe, in actual fact, and we should label it as nothing less. Nobody wins. Nobody wins. Not even the coaching parent, because they have to live with the fact that they have lied and that they have broken a very special situation of trust with their child.
Pinky knows the feeling well. On the day of her father's release, she seemed anxious.
Namhlanje futhi ngisadideka nje ngoba angangiqondi inhliziyo yami ibuhlungu kakhulu.
And it gets worse when friends and family choose to side with one parent or the other.
And so children lose out on the safety and security of having extended family that also contributes to their care and protection.
After Pinky's mother died, she and her brother Ayanda were sent to live with an aunt they didn't know.
Yebo besihleli kodwa nje noma kukhona isikhala sokuthi akekho umuntu omdala.
Ayanda lost the sight in one eye in a fight with some boys who called his father a rapist. Pinky fell pregnant at 15 and now has a young son. Peter says he can only imagine how Sofiso must have worried about his children while he was locked up. He says he's thankful he never ended up in jail.
And eventually a court-appointed psychologist gave a final report in which I was cleared totally.
Although no charges were ever brought against him, he says he spent over R500,000 in legal and psychological fees. At least now, he has visitation rights.
If you haven't got the money to afford a lawyer, a defense lawyer, you are going to go to prison. It's too easy. The system is not just.
Like many fathers without means, in 2007, policeman Themba Dlavana was convicted of raping his daughters. One was 11 and the other 14. According to Dlavana, his ex-wife was behind the plot to put him in jail. He says that she forced their eldest daughter into coercing the 2 younger children into lying about the sexual abuse. Themba had remarried and maintains that both his ex and their eldest daughter were jealous of his new relationship. But shortly after their father was incarcerated, the girls admitted they had lied. But Themba is still serving 3 life sentences. Derek traveled to Johannesburg prison to meet with him. We weren't allowed to take cameras inside, but Themba called us on the phone.
You see now, if we are in prison, you become a toothless dog. Because I filed many petitions in many institutions, starting with the Human Rights Commission. And then I filed the petition in the office of the public protector.
But he's had no response.
It's painful. I must tell you, it's painful.
According to Prof, they're currently working on 8 similar cases. He blames poor investigation by the police, aggravated by prosecutors who don't do due diligence. Sofiso also says he had an alibi. He was working in another town at the time of the alleged rapes. Was that not raised in court?
No.
Why?
I think he was not properly represented.
Like prosecutors, Jones says social workers need to get up to speed. It's a tough job and more training is needed.
We've worked with a number of social workers and psychologists on this issue, some of the most experienced in this field of work, custody and access and abuse battles. And sometimes you can look at a situation with children and you can say, we actually don't know.
The National Prosecuting Authority told us they were unaware of the syndrome, but spokesperson Bulelwa Makeke agreed to speak in general about wrongful convictions. How does somebody get 2 life sentences without the use of DNA evidence and the fact that he had an alibi?
The role of the prosecutor is merely to present this information, this evidence, before court.
She blamed the police for shoddy investigations, but said that the prosecuting authority would look into these cases to see what went wrong. How does a man who's been found to be guilty, who's sitting in jail, how does he get the police to reopen the case?
If they are in a correctional services,
Yes.
there are processes where you actually say, you know, this is what has happened, and get the process going from it.
Safiso shares he wrote to everybody, including the Human Rights Commission.
And what happened? Was that ignored?
Nothing. It was ignored.
Was that happened? You know, I think that would be a serious miscarriage of justice if that's the case.
As Derek and Prof help Temba fight for his freedom, Safiso and Pinky are on the road to healing their family.
Hayibo right kakhulu ngoba ngimboni yena unokungisaba ngimboni ukuthi unokungisaba. Futhi senalokho ukuthi ubaba ngami izinto ebhlungu sinomaya ngimboni ukuthi awunalokho yabo. Kanti mina nginankinga nomntanami. Ngoba ngaleso sikhathi wayesemncane.
That's just heartbreaking. After the break, a strange story of how a foreign accent can ruin a life.